Salutations, Utopians, Global here. Um, so I really wanted to just recap the Golden State Warriors elimination. Really wasn't too much to talk about, knowing that they had been going without Steph Curry for the vast majority of the series, and obviously they're designed and equipped around him. It's one of those rare teams where normally you just stack up some teams you can just stack the best players, but with the Golden State Warriors, um, you have to really fine tune how you're going to organize this roster because you have such a unique generational talent, not even a lifetime talent, and Steph Curry, uh, who's so unorthodox in the way that he thrives in the NBA, that it's so very sophisticated and nuanced, and with this Warriors roster, a lot of it is predicated on timing, as I've stated in several videos, and so that's why certain guys like Kuminga are struggling to play off of Steph. And I was gonna leave the Warriors elimination alone, but some recent comments by uh, Udonis Haslam, and I've kind of come to accept that ESPN now is about flashy takes at all costs, and I don't even like to call that network out because I genuinely don't want to see anything bad happen to that network. But every day it feels like the over dramatic takes, like Brunson's already the greatest Knick of all time, and Jimmy Butler is just the sensationalism, just period, just the way that they always got to act like the newest thing is the. I've been complained about this in sports media. um you know Jay Williams seems like on a weekly basis now he doesn't care at all costs what he's got to say to get views and ratings. And I don't believe you have to sit up here and sensationalize everything to to mark its significance if we properly articulate it and highlight it the way it needs to be. You know, just simply saying this is one of the greatest Knicks of all time, for instance, top five, and if he can get them into the finals, then he can be here, like actually building the league up and acting like there's been some kind of precedent and there's prestige amongst the league would get you so much further, I believe. I always say it's like the Curry debate. People have to, Under Armour thinks you have to call him the greatest point guard because you can't call him the greatest shooting guard, obviously, with Jordan there. But calling Steph a top five shooting guard, calling him the fifth best shooting guard of all time, holds way more gravity than saying he's better than Magic Johnson. He's just not. He's not even a point guard, really. Go look at Team USA. Drew Holiday and LeBron ran point before he did. Vast majority, if not all his highlights are of him shooting the ball. And so, speaking of the Warriors and Steph's legacy, and being on the topic of legacy, let's salute Jimmy Butler and everything he did to will this team and bring new life, because they were starting at such a deficit, and upon arrival, immediately rekindled their hope, despite them ending up being a play-in team and then clawing their way into the regular playoffs, uh, the gritty way, which was more games on a veteran body team. Um, there's a lot to be commended. Uh, I don't think to what needs to happen. Well, first, could they have beaten the Wolves? Sure, possibly. But when you're that old, everything has to go right health wise. You have to win the games in a good amount of time. You don't want any uh, extended series. You got to have everything happen by the book for it to work. And we know life is never designed in a straight line, unfortunately. Almost never, at least. Let's not make any generalizations. Um, as constructed, the Warriors are a team that has everything you need now, with especially with the emergence of Post, who was shooting the three ball, stretch five. That's what they've been needing all this time. His lack of playing time was a mystery to me. Uh, it put Tracy Jackson there, who I'm a fan of. I think Tracy has some great highlights, but I was very confused by his lack of minutes, and just the rotation choices. At one point, as I've stated a few times, the Warriors went to 14 different players, which was one of the most all time, if not the most, from a franchise in a postseason game. At this point, for the sake of sanity, I think it would be in the best interest of the Golden State Warriors to really, come hell or high water, make sure you move off of Kuminga's contract. You know, Steph's game is predicated on rhythm and timing, and when you got guys, it's the Jordan Poole effect all over again. I gotta beg you to give me the ball. I gotta, you know, his first reaction is like what Brandon Ingram used to do on the Lakers. He wants to scan the floor upon catching it, try to ISO jab, jab, and it's like, bro, we need you to come off the screen and either pull it or kick it out. Every chance you get, you should be. If you see any opening or opportunity, that ball needs to go to Steph. That's what Jimmy understands. And especially when you're carrying the stigma on you, because people say, why isn't he shooting the ball? Why isn't he shooting the ball more? But when the stigma that's behind him, even if he's been right with respect to his previous destinations, is he's difficult, there's going to be a little overcompensation of trying to show that you can gel with the current unit and you don't want any more problems. They gave him his money. He's got his role. He's picked his number, and he even avoided his 22 that he wore and put on 10 just to sidestep the Andrew Wiggins debacle. And you watch this unfold, and people want him to start gunning. Well, I need to remind you, he got hurt in the Houston series, and everyone's showing grace to Steph, but nobody's acknowledging, well, what about the gutsy performance from Jimmy? How much do you want him to pull? He's not even. There was questions he wasn't even going to play. He came back the next game. He really shouldn't have been playing. Had it been a regular season game, he probably would have been out for 10 days, nursing it, pampering it to the best of his ability. And I just think, what should the Warriors do? Is it I'm going to be honest, this is very tricky. It just depends. Definitely move off Kuminga. That energy, that frustration that they got going on, definitely needs to just get a guy. He belongs somewhere like Brooklyn where he can empty stat pad, and somewhere like Brooklyn he can thrive. And the Warriors would, if in the perfect world, we're hearing the Giannis talk, that's just too much. With Draymond, with Jimmy, if there's anybody from Milwaukee, you hear them talking this Giannis conversation. If anything, it's more like maybe a Brook Lopez, a Bobby Portis. They just could use some complementary pieces and to water down their depth a little bit. They can be a little bit overstacked, Podziemski, Buddy Hield, Moody, Kevin Knox, Tracy Jackson. I don't see anything wrong with the team, really. They just could use, and that's why I was kind of disappointed upon. I think they got 4 first-round picks available, and I was kind of disappointed when I heard they could either go Podziemski. I think it was straight up for Markkanen, or you can package Kuminga and some draft picks. I would have did the Kuminga for some draft picks, and for better or worse, but it's kind of scary when you think about acquiring Markkanen, because if it doesn't work out, that's the end of the road. What if he turns into Bargnani with the Knicks off the Toronto Raptors? It is kind of scary to put all your eggs in one basket. If anything, if you're the Warriors, you would probably want to liquidate Kuminga for lesser caliber players or guys who appear to be on the ascension, who are more like not necessarily G League entry, like you know they belong, but just not probably getting the minutes they deserve. I don't know what that looks like, but a bevy of, because the thing is too, they got players at key spots. I mean, maybe if you want to move off Buddy, fine, but like, what are you gonna move off Buddy for? Lonzo Ball? You know what I mean? Maybe if you can get Lonzo Ball, that would be cool, you know. Um, but Buddy really did step up to the plate. I wouldn't even scapegoat him. If he had a bad game, it comes with the territory. It wasn't any distinct, damn, Buddy, he rose to the occasion and even may have won them some games in that series against the Wolves before he cost them, you know. And so he did more contributing to winning than he did being a detriment. And so I really think, it's luxury, as glorious as it sounds, as entertaining as it sounds, as conditioned as the fans are, that might be their best interest just to remain put and see what you can, and then get what you can get off of Kuminga. The lines have been blurred where enough, I think, where they can bluff teams and say, hey, we're not in a rush to trade him, or we don't need to trade him, but we will, for the right offer, and nobody tries to just completely swindle you, you know what I mean? But ultimately, even like I said, the only area, and I don't even think Post was the problem, he just didn't get minutes. And I understand from an X's and O's standpoint, you're trying to match up, but in that series, I felt like, not trying to be an armchair quarterback or think I know more than Steve Kerr, but some stuff you just have to feel within, and sometimes you got to go, these are our flaws and these are your strengths, and I know you have us in this department, but we're going to go this way anyway, for better or worse. Could Post have been exposed perhaps in that series? Absolutely, but it's a necessary evil to have, at least because I'll have a big body player out there who can impose some physicality, who can put 6 fouls, who can box out Rudy, and also, most importantly, get him out that paint. Because for whatever reason, Kevon Looney is not shooting the ball like that. And so I'll take my chances with, with Post 3-point shooting ability and saying, hey, you know what? And I would have liked to see also, let me just leave it like that. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. But like, there was some, Post, I would have played Post more. That's for sure. I would have started Post, even regardless if he gets exposed in the pick and roll. That's just a judgment we're going to have to take. And in fact, I'm going to dare you, the old Phil Jackson method, to make that pick and roll shot, make that pick and roll, make that bucket off the pick. Even if it's Anthony Edwards, I'm going to let you keep shooting it until you either break concentration or you do start to slump. And psychologically now, it's like, that's what they're giving us. I got to make it. I don't want, and make him keep making it until he gets tired. You heard him say earlier in the year, I don't want to play this way. I don't want to play that way. When faced with the double teams, well, I'm going to force you to have to keep shooting that mid-range off the pick. Perhaps a few, at least one game, especially once you lose Steph, you got nothing to lose. I'm going to start posting. I'm going to dare them on a pick and roll to try to expose me, and with that play, but and the only reason why I'm trying to go backwards into what strategically could have been different, because it does go along with what I'm saying in terms of, I don't know if they really need anything. Yeah, you can sign a Brook Lopez off the bench at center, get some more quality floor spacers at the 5, but even then, I'm not getting rid of Kevon Looney, because he was one of the best offensive rebounders statistically last season. So there's still a place for him, and Tracy Jackson is a solid player. The thing is, they're dead set on where they're dead set at. So it's not like, oh, we're gonna get rid of this guy, and you're pretty much gridlocked everywhere. So the next thing is, well, just got to be healthy. And I know that sounds crazy, because that's like telling somebody with ADD to just remain still, don't move, but especially because of the fans. But they have everything they need. They just got injured. And then, could they use a Zach LaVine instead of Buddy Hield? I'm taking into account realistically what you can do and what you can't. With the CBA so tricky, like back in the day, you could have an expiring deal and then another big contract and some draft picks. But now you have to trade head up, from my understanding. So like, you can't package Kuminga and Buddy Hield for one player. It has to be one player for one player now. the way my understanding is of the CBA. So that's why I'm saying, like, all this headache off of face value of what I believe my interpretation is of the CBA, they're pretty much stuck in gridlock. They got adequate pieces, and then it just boils down to injuries, schedule, health. Well, I already said injury, so health. But like, that's the only real thing they can do is Golden State. But honestly, this season was a success from where it was to who they acquired, because you're not gonna find a stretch five on trees. So what did they do? They went and got the next best thing, which is Jimmy, who changed the entire culture and matched that locker room better than what Andrew Wiggins was. A more mild manner, fall in line. Miami's better for that. For Andrew, or is it's just a natural, it's a neutral move for Andrew. But for Jimmy, it's an exceptional move because he's more in an environment that fits him. Like, you're not the craziest in the room anymore. You got Pods, you got Dre, you got psychopaths around you, so you can really, there's no such thing as really going over the limit. Everyone's just like, we're used to this. He's part of it. In fact, it's welcomed. We can always use more people like this because our ace in the hole is the most level-headed guy, which is Steph. So it's okay if everyone else around the nucleus is, you know, I just think they got what they need. They just got to count on certain things falling into their favor. Interesting, in the press conference per NBC Warriors, Steph made it seem like really these next 2 years are the focal point. Anything past that, probably not probable. So they're really locked into next year. And really, I think the theme is just conditioning for the Warriors, just getting healthy, and that's it. I hope everyone rests up, enjoys the off season. He noted in the press conference that there's no Team USA this season. And so, you know, that really, they've played a lot of basketball last year, that nucleus, you know, well, Steph at least. And then the season going into this first half of the year, a lot of wear and tear trying to, you know, keep the team afloat. And then they finally had to go get Jimmy. Remember, there was a point in the season where it was looking like he was going to start demanding a trade pretty soon. He's like, I don't want to be playing for nothing. Now, it's up to them to will their way. Do I think they got enough to do it? You know, OKC, maybe they can beat OKC. The Wolves would be a difficult matchup, but when Steph was healthy, he was able to hang in there and you know, make it anything's possible. They could definitely beat Denver. No one's clearly way better than them. It's just, you know, the health factor. Hope this video was informative, Utopians. Till next time, Global out.